everybody. Where do I begin? Well, I suppose I began 2 days ago, but where do I begin? How do I start looking for the purpose, for the point, for the reason? You know, people say you need to set up a plan and have goals and figure out where you want to go with your life. So, where do I start on this? I'm now middle-aged. Frankly, I feel ancient today, but yeah, middle-aged. And I don't know where to start or where I should end. You know, what is the end? And what's the point of having an end? What's the point of having a goal? So, when I finished school, I wanted to study and become a lawyer. I'm not big on injustice. I'm not big on bullies. I detested the schooling system because there were a bunch of people with overinflated egos who would regulate one's every move. There were teachers who thrived on bullying, literally bullying children. So I'm not big on bullying. So I wanted to study to become a lawyer. And unfortunately, my father decided that girls should get married and have children. So apparently I was supposed to find some elusive man who wanted to marry me, me who doesn't do bullies, me who doesn't do someone telling me what to do 24/7. I was supposed to find this elusive man, get married, and who knows, maybe I would have been fertile. I don't know. And I wasn't supposed to have an education. So I started working on the 6th of January 1986. And I finished my schooling at the end of 1985. And I started studying via correspondence. I did a university degree, a Bachelor of Commerce with a specialty in law. Now, unfortunately, I'm not a particularly good student. I don't study well. I understand the work and I can apply the work. But what I found out about law is that you have to remember from the very first dot on the first page to the very last dot on the last page. So where I could remember a judge, one of either the defendant or the plaintiff, and the case, and of course the outcome, I couldn't remember all of it. I couldn't remember the date it happened on. So there were stupid things. I don't have one of those memories where I store information that, frankly, I could look up in a casebook. If I know the case, why do I need to know the rest of the stuff? So that's how my brain functions. And I have an attitude. Anyway, I tried doing the BCom legal and managed to not pass the legal modules. Many people would say it was pure laziness. Probably. I just can't remember that type of information. So be it. We moved along, we did a BCom, and we focused on business economics and the various business management modules and industrial psychology. But the dream was to be a lawyer. I wanted to fight for the rights of the downtrodden. I wanted to be a voice for the people who had no voice. I wanted to stand up and fight. So it was all very altruistic. helping the helpless, giving the solution to the problem. Anyway, as that faded into the darkness and young adult life got the better of me, I didn't do law. I ended up moving into the IT industry, and you need to bear in mind, when I was in the IT industry, the current operating systems weren't even a twinkle in the eye of operating system manufacturers. It's actually funny if I think back to how ridiculously heavy even the keyboard was, let alone the monitor. I mean, the monitor was off the wall heavy. And then I compare it to a laptop, which weighs virtually nothing. So, yeah, I was at the beginning of IT technology. And unfortunately, working in a large corporate, I worked for a bank, my life was dictated by men. And in a patriarchal society, the vast majority of the male population has an issue with a woman who does anything except maybe, I don't know, type, answer a telephone, and clean the house and have babies. So my start wasn't great. It wasn't great. I have an attitude. I've mentioned this. I have an attitude. I don't do bullies. I don't do men telling me what I can and can't do. I don't do women telling me what I can and can't do. I, in fact, don't even do institutions telling me what I can and can't do. No, I'm not a rebel without a cause or a clue. I am a thinking, feeling human being who does the best that I can in the circumstances that I can, and try not to harm anyone in the process. But I will not be dictated to by some person who thinks they are superior in any shape, form or size. Respect is earned, it is not granted. So, yeah, I had a bit of a checkered life at the beginning of my work career, because particularly males, and I'm sorry, please, I'm not a feminist, I'm not a bra burner, although bras are very uncomfortable. I'm not a bra burner. I do love men. I don't love being bullied. So I lost my dream. I didn't have direction. I didn't have a role model. I had no purpose. So I worked, I earned an income, and my motivations were from day to day. So it was a case of, I need to move out of the parental home because I couldn't stand it there. I had to get out of there. So yes, I had to work, and then I needed to transport. You know, South Africa's transport system is, well, in those days it was dismal at best. Now we have things like Uber and Bolt. In those days, we didn't stand a snowball's chance in hell of getting from A to B in any decent form. We had buses, and bus services started at a particular time of the day and they ended at a particular time of the day. So movement was difficult. So I needed a car to have independence. So that was how my life was dictated. It was a case of what do I need to do to get the next thing? So I need a flat, I need to earn an income, I need to save up, I need deposit for the flat. Then it was a car. I need to save up for a car. So everything was worked around what need I had and how I would fulfill that need for myself. You know, many people have parents or had parents who bought them a car. Parents who helped them move into their first apartment, flat, cottage, home, whatever you might want to call it. Many people had that. I didn't. I was the youngest of four, and frankly, I think by the time it got to me, my parents were so sick to death of us that they were just too happy to see the back of us. So there was no goal, there was no future planning, there was no, this is how I'm going to get where I'm going to get. This is what I'm going to do to become who I want to become, because I didn't want to become anything anymore. I wanted to be a lawyer. I couldn't do the lawyer thing because I couldn't pass the exams. I couldn't pass the exams because I don't study well. I don't study well. I cannot remember from the first dot on the first page to the last dot on the last page. It's as simple and as complicated as that. I can apply principles, I can apply stuff. I understand the work, I can apply the work. I can't verbatim, parrot, repeat the work. So that sort of fell by the wayside. In any event, I did the BCom. I mean, I'd already started the BCom, so I just changed the subjects, and I'd already started paying for it. So because I've always worked for everything myself, I will not throw money away. I won't do it. It's just one of those things. If I pay for something, I will finish it. So I did my BCom degree. I carried on working. I moved around within the bank. And eventually I got to the point where I was sick to death of the bank. I was sick to death of people telling me what to do. People who didn't know what I was doing telling me what to do. People who were earning 5, 6, 7 times more than me, who were clueless in terms of what I was doing, telling me what to do. So I left the bank. I found a job where I could earn more, and I left the bank. And in and of itself, that was probably one of the first mistakes that I made. The first big fundamental mistakes. Because life may have been completely different if I hadn't left the bank. Realistically, I would have probably been a grumpy old person in the bank now, as opposed to a grumpy old person not in the bank. Anyway, be that as it may, I still had no direction. I worked for another corporate in the insurance industry, still working in IT, and that company was taken over by a larger insurance company, and the larger insurance company seemed to have a mandate that all the people from the company that they had merged with were to leave. So they made our lives hell. And I may have mentioned, I don't do people telling me what to do. I don't do bullies. You know, there's a very big difference between being rebellious for no apparent reason and being rebellious because people are trying to force you to do something because they want you to, not for any valid reason. I remember, and it's actually hysterically funny, I was on first call out at the bank. I was on call out every day of the month, and I would get paid a call out allowance, and I would get paid per call, and I would get paid overtime. That is the basic condition of the call out. And one of the bosses came to me and said he wanted to let me know that I could share my call out with one of the other guys in the office. And I thought, great. And I said to him, so I'll be on for 2 weeks of the month and he'll be on for the other 2 weeks of the month. And this man's response was, no, you'll still be on call every day. You will share your call-out allowance with this other person. That is the type of thing I'm speaking about. It's that type of bully mentality where people think because they hold a position of authority that they can make whatever rule suits them and they can force you to do whatever they want you to do, and you've just got to suck it up or face the consequences. Thankfully, I was pretty good at my job because they didn't actually want to get rid of me, so I wouldn't tolerate that type of thing. And I took my right as my right, and I took privilege as privilege. And I explained it to this manager in words of one syllable so that he could understand it. Needless to say, I kept my full call-out allowance and stayed on full call as I would have had I been sharing the allowance. So that is where I'm going with this. Yes, I'm difficult, but I'm not unreasonable. So I don't take instruction well if it's not well thought out. And at the insurance company, they decided they would try and set me up on a trumped-up fraud charge. And it was hysterically funny because I've always believed in truth. So if you want to know the truth and you come to me and say, what do you think of my outfit? I will tell you what I think. I think. If you ask me a direct question, I will answer it truthfully. And frankly, it doesn't matter what the question is. If I think it's none of your business, I will truthfully tell you it's none of your business. So there's that. But when it comes to truth and lies, I don't muddy the waters. I firmly believe truth is truth. And they try to trump up charges against me, they being my managers. And the funny part was, the forensic auditor came and gave me a heads up that they were trying to raise a forensic audit case against me and that he had told them to get knotted because there's no way I was committing any form of fraud. And then one of the HR senior managers called me in HR, Human Resources, called me in and gave me a heads up as well. And I ended up leaving that company with them paying me a big severance because I wasn't prepared to work for people who could trump up false allegations. I wasn't prepared to do it. In the meantime, I was studying psychology. So I used the psychology as a method of navigating through the situation. But yes, I ended up leaving the insurance company and ended up unemployed for 2 years because since 1994 in South Africa, as a white person, it is very, very difficult to find a job. As an educated white person, it is even more difficult to find a job. The government likes to pretend that there is no reverse racism. The government likes to pretend that apartheid ended in 1995. It didn't. It didn't end. It was reversed. So, as a result, white people, educated white people, find it ridiculously difficult to find employment. The white people who are employed have either been in their positions for donkey's years, or they are new starters, or they run their own company. That is how white South Africans survive. When I was unemployed, I applied at supermarkets. Supermarkets, no, we don't hire. We can't hire. You aren't black economic empowerment. And yeah, I couldn't be a waitress. Unfortunately, I have an attitude. Now, you see, I told you this attitude thing is a problem. You see, I won't tolerate somebody being rude to me. And I used to watch and listen to my father dealing with waitresses in restaurants. If I served my father in a restaurant and he spoke to me the way he spoke to waitresses, and no, don't get me wrong, he wasn't rude. He wasn't rude. He wasn't your classic bully, horrible patron. He was a sexist chauvinist. He would, if a waitress asked him what he wanted to drink, he would ask for milk, the way his mother used to make it. Thankfully, most waitresses didn't realize what he was saying. I did. He didn't want cow's milk. He didn't want milk in a glass. Take it from there. He didn't want milk from a glass or a mug or a cup or any other vessel except the vessel that his mother would have made it in. And frankly, if I served him, I would have clocked him across the top of the head with a tray or dropped his food on his head. And apparently that doesn't work in restaurants. Apparently one has to suck it up. And I won't. So yeah, we have this whole attitude thing going. We have this attitude of treat me with respect and decorum. I I don't mind if you use swear words. I have no objection whatsoever. I don't mind if you speak around sexual topics. I have no objection to being in the company of men who use poor language. And in fact, what I normally do, because I worked in IT with men, what I would do is I would notice that they weren't speaking freely. And then I would throw in the odd fuck so that they would relax and speak freely. But sexual innuendos, sexual advances, those type of things were no-go. I won't tolerate them because I have an attitude. So the attitude is a problem. Anyway, I was studying psychology and I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll get a psychology qualification, and then I will practice as a psychologist. And that all seemed all good and well. But one needs a degree, then an honours degree, then a master's degree, possibly a doctorate if you get that far. Or is it doctorate, then master's? I think it's master's first. To do that was going to take a long, long time. And I didn't have time. I was doing the Bachelor of Arts, leaning towards psychology, and I would need to do the honours in psychology. But in the meantime, I had to support myself. Now, all the while you're thinking, well, why haven't your parents helped you in this? Well, strictly speaking, I wasn't abused. Well, maybe I was. Mentally, psychologically, physically to an extent, depending on how you see physical abuse. You see, up until probably a week ago, I didn't think I was physically abused. I thought I had a high pain threshold because that's just the way my body's designed. Apparently not. Apparently, when a child gets given an inordinate amount of hidings, that's what we call them, or called them in those days, when a child gets an inordinately high amount of hidings for being a bad child, they develop a high tolerance for pain. They stop reacting to it. The body gets used to it. So apparently I was abused as a child. Unfortunately, it wasn't a punch to the face that I could take to welfare and lay charges. Unfortunately, the obvious abuse for me was psychological and mental. It wasn't physical. And any person who's tried to prove psychological, emotional, mental trauma knows the struggle of trying to show someone what a human being has done to another human being. And funnily enough, it's one of the fundamentals of my nature is I will fight a bully, and no, I don't mean physically, although I have. What can I say? I have defended myself physically against one woman, and it was one smack. It was actually more of a reflex than anything. But I don't do physical violence. I seldom shout. I used to when I was young. I don't anymore. I will fight the bully using law, using logic, using reason, using common decency. And that I learned because of neglect. That I learned because, well, nobody stood up for me. Nobody stood up for me. I stood up for me. You know, it's actually hysterically funny. My mother was one of my best weapons against the schooling system, because even the teachers were scared of her. So if they did something that I knew she wouldn't like, I would say to them, I will speak to my mother about this and see what she thinks of it. And then they would stop what they were doing. Because she would fight. Verbally. And they didn't like that. So, yeah, I used that. Because as a child, you learn how to use what you need to use in order to survive. So, surrounded by bullies, you think on your feet. You think on your feet and you learn how to manipulate in order to survive. It's a self-defense mechanism. And yeah, you're probably thinking, oh, you're just a narcissist. Well, okay, I've asked myself this. I've asked qualified, educated people this. And apparently, the fact that I've asked myself if I'm actually the narcissist, I can't be a narcissist, however that goes. Because I can see how it works and what has happened, and because I have such a vehement reaction to it, I apparently can't be a narcissist. But I've learned that growing up, living with, interacting with narcissistic individuals teaches one how to survive it. And you might think, well, wow, you know, you've probably spent your whole life calling people narcissists. Well, no. The sad reality is that I only realized what type of abuse I was living in, the exact nature of it, when I was in my late 40s, early 50s. It was in my 50s when I discovered exactly how much of a narcissist my brother was. I guess I should qualify. I have 2.5 brothers and a sister. The half brother is my oldest brother. The oldest full brother is dead. And the one who's still alive is a particularly nasty, selfish, manipulative piece of work. He really is. One day I'll tell you about him. One day I'll tell you all about him. He's a nasty, nasty piece of work. And one day he will get what's coming. One day. Unfortunately, I don't think he will ever realize what he's done, because I think he is so adept at being who and what he is that he actually believes his own lies. But yes, that's a story for another day. So I was busy rabbiting on about getting a qualification and wanting to do the psychology thing. And I found that in order to get to qualify as a psychologist, I would need to go through a huge rigmarole of study and learning, and it would have taken me years, but I needed to survive. I needed to put food on the table. I needed to pay for my bond. I never got anything from my parents. When I moved out of that house, in fact, strictly speaking, no. When I started my first job, I got zero financial support or assistance from my family at all. None. My father said he would buy me a car when I got married as a wedding gift. Well, that didn't happen. And my mother never helped me. So everything I've done since I was 17 years old, I've done for myself, by myself. I have earned an income and supported myself. I have not had financial support from anyone at all. I have always had to work my way out of everything I've ever wanted. So for me to spend 5, 6, 7 years studying to become a qualified psychologist and then earn an income was inconceivable. Because frankly, how does one survive when one is studying and not working? And how does one study a master's degree when you are working 6 days a week, long hours? I was in IT, remember? We worked long hours. When does one fit the study in? And yes, I know there are motivated people out there who can study like that. And I take my hat off to them, I really do. I can't. And I don't want to. And as long as I was earning an income, there was no desperate need. So I've gone through life without any primary goal. I had 2 main goals. The one was I want to be a lawyer. Well, that didn't work. Then it was I want to be a psychologist. And well, that didn't work for various reasons. But I did study psychology. I've just never gotten to the point where I could actually qualify, where I could legally counsel people to help them help themselves. I've done arbitrary courses in between. I've done life coaching, and I sort of think, what is the point of trying to coach somebody else in their life when you're battling to coach yourself in your own life? And how many life coaches do I know whose lives are actually okay? And is that where my passion lies? And then I think, well, I don't actually have any passions anymore. I don't have any passions anymore. I don't have any desire to be something anymore. And if I do, I don't know what it is. Because I don't know what it is. It just doesn't exist. And the motivations that I had to reinvent myself are long gone. They're long gone. They died round about the time the last of the love in me died. So now I love kitties, animals, my ferals. I help people, but I've learned boundaries. But I can't see any point in being alive. I can't see any point in the 9 to 5, the wake up, get up, go to work all day, come home, rinse, repeat. 5, 6, however many days a week. I can't see any point to it. I can't see any point in having more or better than anybody else. I want a roof over my head and food in my stomach. I don't care what that roof looks like. I need to be safe, which in South Africa is an interesting concept, but yeah, nonetheless, I need to have a vehicle that can get me from A to B in one piece, and that hopefully some hijacker doesn't want. Yes, we've done the hijacking routine as well. I don't wear any valuable jewelry at all, because in this country it's not safe to do so. I don't carry valuables with me. And to be honest, it's all just stuff. It's all just stuff. So, where exactly do I go with this? How do I begin to find what it is that I can do as me without compromising me, not forgetting that I have a bad attitude? I do. I have an attitude. I own it. I have an attitude. I will not allow a bully to bully. I won't do it. I will no longer allow it to happen to me, and I have never allowed it to happen to other people. I will fight the good fight to stop a bully in their tracks. And up until fairly recently, I even wouldn't fight for myself. Now, it doesn't matter who you are. If you try to bully me, I will bite back. I will fight back. So, where do I go to from here? And how do I figure out where I go to from here? And where do I start figuring it out? Anyway, that's today's thought process pondering. I hope you have a great day.